It's good to be with you again. My name is Jeff Fuller, pastor at Living Hope Wesleyan Church, hopeforvermont.org. One of the joys for me during this pandemic is to interview different people and gain knowledge from them. But one of my favorite people in the world I get to talk to now, and it's been a long time, but Tennyson Doane. It's good to see you, and inviting your wife in too, Jennie. It's good to see you. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing great.
So
Hanging
you're
in there.
surviving this pandemic. Let me switch your
Yeah.
view.
We
So
yeah.
Tenny, I'm going to go to you first if I can do this appropriately. You are now a professor at a college, and there we go. Look at that. Did you ever think that you would have your picture on a college page when you were in high school?
No, not really.
So explain your journey a little bit to going into I was just kind of laughing at this because you're smart, like you're really smart. You have your postdoctoral fellowship degree from Syracuse. You have a physical, I can't even say, did stuff with chemistry and biology, and you're just a really smart guy. So what was it about going into collegiate secondary education, college education, that kind of made you feel like that's where God wanted you?
Yeah, so I guess I've always appreciated, for me personally, I've appreciated how science helps to minister to other people, and how God uses talents to kind of make the world it's kind of cliche, a better place, but in a way to help people. And so when I went to college, I was really open to a lot of different vocations and looking into where God wanted me. And I felt directed to kind of stay towards kind of lay ministry and more so in the science field. And so I did a summer internship, and I really loved research. And so I wanted to pick things that would help with problems in the world. And so I went to graduate school hoping to do solar panels and solar energy. I ended up doing some very, very fundamental stuff that helped some biomedical research related to cancer treatment. And all of that, I guess the thing I would say is just being open to wherever God would lead you, being open to serving wherever you can. All along that journey, I just remember feeling or thinking, how do I help other people? Whether it's in ministry while you're in school, or ministry outside of school, how do you use your talents to really help bring the kingdom? I think is a lot of the way my mindset was.
Well, with the sciences, I listened to an interview a little bit ago, and they said that science does not go against God and creation. It actually says, oh, that's how God did it. When you think about those that would criticize Christians for not being intellectual enough, what are your thoughts?
So it's funny you mentioned this. I've been listening recently to a theologian, N.T. Wright, and I've been listening to kind of the way he describes this kind of dichotomy between science and religion, and it begins with the supposition that they're very, very separate. One of the things that there's a couple of things that have always been very encouraging to me. At ENC, when I went to college, there was a lot of activity at the time about this interaction between science and religion. And if you think about it, it's kind of difficult. I tell my students all the time, science really has no ethics in and of itself. Science is the study of how the world works and not why it should work, and how we should make it work better, and how should we practice responsibility. And so I think in those terms a lot. I think there's limits to what we can know, to some degree, and I think it really comes down to relationships. And as I was saying with this theologian, really goes into depth about this idea of relationship. And so For me, there isn't a conflict. There's tensions. There's times where findings seem to contradict what we have to wrestle with. But to be quite honest, in every other field, there's times where we have to wrestle, whether it's economics or social work or wherever, healthcare. You wrestle with things, and I think that's part of the human journey as we pursue it. Growing up in the Wesleyan tradition, I've really valued holiness and this idea of living responsible and loving your neighbor and being made into the image of God. Science is understanding kind of some of the mechanics of what that looks like in terms of the created order. But there's still a lot left to understand about purpose and meaning. And so I come back to there quite a bit.
Tenny, that's a great answer. I want to just ask you one more question, then I'll bring on your lovely wife. And Tenny, as I said, is one of my favorite people in the world. And Jennie, I don't know you as well, but I trust his discernment in marrying you and all of that. But Tennyson, thinking about Eastern Nazarene College, this has been so weird and difficult with these pandemic, this disruption. How, as a professor, have you been able to navigate this new normal?
Yeah, so it's weird for everyone. I think one of the things that at ENC we're very cognizant of, it's about students. We're here to nurture students. And so that intentionality doesn't change whether we're remote or whether we're face-to-face. And if anything, it means that we try harder when we are remote. And so one of the things that I've tried to do, and which many of my colleagues have been doing as well, is checking in with students, whether that's through video conferencing or phone calls, email chain, whatever you can do. Again, I come back to this idea of relationship. It's not just a matter of teaching students knowledge. It's not a matter of just filling them with facts. It's really about how to practice right living in the world and being responsible. And in some ways, the pandemic has made us practice what we preach. How are we going to take care of our neighbors that aren't necessarily in front of us, that we don't see day to day? It would be so easy just to say, you know what, I'm just going to stream Netflix for 8 hours and just ignore my responsibilities. And it would be easy to do that. And so in some ways, I look at the pandemic as really challenging the church to do what it says it does and to really take care of its neighbors and to be intentional. As a Christian institution, as professors, we're no exception. And so it has made challenges. I'm sure you as a pastor know you got into this to work with people and you worked face to face. We don't do that right now. But we're trying to be very intentional, not only as professors, but as an institution, staff, everyone, from the lowest to the highest. We're trying to be very intentional with loving our students, making sure that they still continue to grow even during these challenging times.
Oh, most definitely. Tenny, thanks so much for sharing some words with us. I'm going to bring on Jennie right now. You are not only married, but a mother of 3, and you are working towards more with vocational ministry. Could you just talk about what seems so infamous, the calling of God, but when did you feel like God wanted you to serve in this way?
So I started to feel a call when I was in high school towards medical missions. And I went to ENC and then got my master's in nursing. And I worked as a bedside nurse for 5 or so years. And then always with the intention of doing some type of mission or, using my nursing in ministry in some way. And then God called us to Syracuse, New York after we finished graduate school. And I started working at our local church, which is a compassionate ministry center in Syracuse, New York. And God just really impressed upon me that I needed to also pursue more of the ministry side. So I started taking classes, and God was able to help us start a health ministry there to the people in the city. So kind of using my nursing as compassionate ministry as an inroad to helping people, and to also facilitate their growth towards Christ. So I I'm kind of just still going a little bit of a slower pace as I take classes and do some of my training. I do visitation and pastoral care at the church that's located on ENC's campus, and I also work with the students who are interested in healthcare at ENC. So it's kind of been a roundabout road, but all towards using which I'm thankful for, and God works in crazy ways that you wouldn't probably expect. And I think if He had told me or showed me exactly what He wanted me to do back in, at ENC or in high school, I'm not sure if I hope I would have said yes, but I probably would have been much more nervous. So it's been good.
It's interesting you come from that angle. I did not know your story. My daughter, who is now 16, a sophomore in high school, she's often talked about going into nursing, which is exciting. And then she
Yeah.
talked about the mission field, which is exciting. And then I realized as a dad and as a pastor, that might mean overseas missions.
Yeah.
When you think about how too many Christians, in my opinion, say missions is just overseas, could you just talk about the mission field
Yeah.
just next
Yeah,
door?
definitely. That's something I'm really passionate about because God had to change my heart back when I was going to ENC, because I was just so focused on that. I was called to be a medical missionary, and that must have meant, I went to Haiti, I went to Africa, I went to Mexico, and God really had to change my perception and said that very clearly to me, that the mission field for you, at least right now, I don't know what the future holds, but the mission field right now is right here, and it's right in where you grew up. It's right in your own city, and you are a missionary right there, and you can use everything that I've learned and everything that He's taught me right there. It took me a while to readjust my focus for some reason. I think I just was very set on that picture in my mind of what I wanted to do, but yeah, I'm thankful for that. My eyes were refocused, and I get to kind of stay close to family. That's a plus. So
Hey, this question is switching gears a little bit. It's for both of you if you want to answer, Tenny. But Jennie, when you hear about pastors committing suicide or seeing pastors get burnt by the local church or people or denomination, it causes great pause. But for me, it's just a reminder of the urgency to focus on Jesus, not everything else. But for
yeah.
you, preparing to take those next steps, what are your thoughts when you hear of this burnout that seems so evident and like
Yeah.
everybody's experiencing some of that?
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think that there's a lot of, it's so sad and so heartbreaking, because I know that the burnout and everything are people who just care so much, and they want to help in any way that they can. And I think that a big thing to start addressing that is, it starts all the way down from the congregation and from the people, and also from just the mindset of the whole church. I think just to value that we all need Sabbath rest, we all need points and days away, we all need days off, and also realizing I'm very much all of my personality tests. I'm the helper. I want to do everything possible, and taking all that on your shoulders is not my job. My job is to be faithful every moment to what He's called me to, and put in before me for that day. And that takes a lot of discipline for me to not take everything on all the time in my mind. And so yeah, and to allow the congregation and the people just to be aware that this is happening, and then to support their pastors to be able to take time and encourage them to have a Sabbath day, and all of that is really important. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And I'm so fortunate where I am at Living Hope Wesleyan Church right now to feel that support.
Mm.
Ed Stetzer shared that if you have about 5 to 10 people, 10% of your people upset with you, that's good, that's normal, that's healthy. But if you have like 50 or 60%, that's probably means something needs to change. But Tenny, before the next question, did you just want to jump in on there? Because Just seeing pastors struggle, was that any part of why you said, hey, I'm going to pursue a different type of ministry?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, I remember going to college and asking, should I was very interested in pastoral care. I'm interested in preaching. I was very interested and very open in my freshman year, and I just felt guided to be a lay person. And so I guess what I would say there is we've kind of got this weird concept of church. A lot of people in the American church, at least, consider it, I go to church and the pastor feeds me. And that really wasn't the model that Christianity was born out of. I mean, the church had a shared vision. They sold all they had and shared with one another. They broke bread together. There's obviously need for leadership, but I feel as though in a lot of times, and in my own life as a layperson, I am convicted that it's my job to help with the church. That ultimately, yes, we have pastors to lead us and to nurture us, but it's not to be fed; it's to go out and feed. And I think that a lot of times it's very easy for a church to say we're going to watch the person up front and we're going to have expectations for the person up front, and then not really put your shoulder to the plow and go out and do what's necessary for your community. As a layperson, I've tried to live my life to be that kind of person. The strange thing as a professor is I do a lot of pastoral care. You wouldn't call it that, perhaps, but I do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of talking about future priorities, things that are kind of dancing around the kingdom. And I'm not a trained, I don't have training per se as a pastor, but I do a lot of it. And so I think we have to realize that this idea of pastor, we're supposed to be taking care of our neighbors. The gospel is supposed to be moving through us. That includes lay people. And I think valuing a pastor for what they're doing, helping them through times of struggle, is really important. I was struck when I was growing up in college. You always read the greatest commandments, and the first one's love the Lord your God. The second one always struck me. You love your neighbor, but it's the second part that really gets me. It's as yourself. And so the idea here is that as you love yourself, you love your neighbor. And that kind of flips it on its head, that as you take care of yourself, that as you nurture yourself, you are able to go out and nurture and take care of your neighbor. So like Jennie was saying, the creating space for pastors to experience some of that rest and growth, giving them the reinforcement, the same love that the pastor gives the congregation. If the congregation can reciprocate that, that allows the pastor to be more effective. And it doesn't mean we won't have disagreements, that there will be times that, it's a broken world, but I think that mindset would go a long way to helping support those that are in leadership.
Tenny, my boy, one of the many reasons I love you is that perspective on life and calling of God. Hey, switch in and then we'll just wrap up. Thank you guys so much for making the time this morning. What are some things that you cannot wait to get back to in this new normal? And what are some things you're going to miss after being quarantined for how many ever weeks it's been?
I'm excited to go walk through the store with a coffee and just just be able to walk around and not be so nervous. I'm excited to be able to go outside to the beach. I'm excited to be able to travel to see my family and my in-laws. But I will say that I'm appreciative of this time because it's also allowed me just to kind of take a pause to reassess what actually is necessary and what God is calling me to do on a day-to-day basis. And I do feel more present with my family and with my kids especially. So just to still take the time to sit down and talk with them and watch a movie and all of those kinds of things. I hope that slower pace can continue past this.
Tenny?
Yeah, so what I will miss most is that I don't really have to get dressed. This is great. I can you don't have to really go anywhere as long as you have a good dress shirt. You're pretty much good to go,
That's a fact.
and so that's really nice. What I'm really looking forward to again is kind of that relational piece. I think getting out a little bit, seeing people again. It does kind of change your dynamic. I'm kind of a homebody anyways, so this isn't a disaster for me. I'm not the most outgoing guy, but I do think having relationships with people, checking in on people, doing ministry, it's difficult to do kind of this way. But yeah.
Hey, so I'm going to drop you guys out and give my closing, but stay on, and then we can chat a little bit more. But thanks so much for jumping
Yeah.
on this morning.
Thanks.
And again, my name is Jeff Fuller, the pastor at Living Hope Wesleyan Church. I trust you are enjoying these interviews and stories. I think we need to be storytellers, or better said, we need to be hero makers and learn from other stories so we can truly understand how big and immense God's love is for all of us, and that he's called us for a specific purpose. And hopefully tomorrow you can celebrate Mother's Day with us online, 9 o'clock, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. It's going to be special, very, very special. You don't want to miss it. And so with that, we're going to say continue to worship together, if so individually, for the next little while. We'll talk to you soon. You guys have a beautiful rest of your day.